Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. Today we're in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 29. Now, I wasn't really pleased with the way we broke up the Bible in this section because this puts us right smack dab in the middle of the ending of Moses' second address and then part way through the beginning of his third address. So, I didn't like the way it was broke up, but we'll get to the finishing point tomorrow. 28 and 29 is today, and tomorrow we're going to be doing Deuteronomy 30 and 31. So, he starts out with blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience. These go hand in hand quite well, and they basically mimic each other in opposites. Remember how Paul taught in opposites? Moses very much so, or show blessings and curses. Those are opposites. And many of these curses were opposites of the blessings that they were stating. What stood out to me, we got to chapter 28, verse 49 and 50. Actually 49 through 52, but I'm going to read 49 and 50 to you. It says, "The Lord will bring a nation from far away, from the ends of the earth, to swoop down on you like an eagle, a nation whose language you won't understand, a ruthless nation, showing no respect for the old, and not sparing the young." Now, when I first read that, I thought, wow, swooping down like an eagle. The first thing I think of is our national bird is an eagle. Wow, that could be the United States, but why would we ever want to attack Israel? We really wouldn't. So I got to doing some digging in it, and the nation from far away turned out to be none other than, dun dun dun, Assyria. That's right, Assyria. And I pulled up a map here. This is the Assyrian Empire from 824 BC in the dark green areas at the top right. And then in the light green, they expanded. In 670, all the way up to 671 BC, they expanded, even to include some of Egypt. They invaded some of the Egyptians area there. Now, this map right here shows the Assyrian Empire in Isaiah's time, which is the time frame that the Bible is referring to here. The nation in 49 and 50 that they're returning to is Assyria. And Assyria, they besieged Samaria, Israel's capital city, for 3 years until the city was forced to surrender. We're going to read more about that in 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 5. And the siege of Samaria, it would be so severe that the people would resort to cannibalism. If we read in chapter 28, verses 53 to 57 about cannibalism, though this horrific behavior that's described here doesn't actually reference the Assyrian siege. An earlier siege under the Armenians resulted in precisely these events. We'll read about that in 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 24 through 31. So Jeremiah later on also predicted that the citizens of Jerusalem will become just as desperate to survive the siege of that city by the Babylonians in his own time. That's in Jeremiah chapter 19:9 that we'll read later. And in fact, he lived to actually see it with his own eyes. And we'll read about that in Lamentations chapter 4, verse 10, and Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 10. Now, my last little map I want to show you about the Assyrian expansion is what it looks like overlaid on a map of today. So you've got modern day Iraq, Iran, Syria, Turkey, Jordan, Israel, and Lebanon, and parts of Egypt that the Assyrian Empire expanded into. So that is the nation that will swoop down on you like an eagle. It's the Assyrians. Now, that brings us to the end of Moses' second address and the end of chapter 28. Chapter 29 begins Moses' third address, and it goes from chapter 29, verse 1 through chapter 30, verse 20. Now, in this section, it consists of his historical review, and it might be referred to as an epilogue of sorts, kind of an ending of his second address. It's not strictly part of the covenant document as typically crafted, but it provides a summation of God's past dealings with Israel. It restates the present occasion of the covenant offer and acceptance and addresses the options of covenant disobedience and obedience, respectively. Finally, it basically lifts up the assembled group to covenant commitment to God. So it basically lifts them up into a covenant commitment or a renewal, a renewed commitment to God. 29 verse 12, Deuteronomy, remember, it's that covenant renewal document, is founded on the covenant that was first made at Mount Sinai. This is not a brand new one. This is just a renewal. The idea that Israel was now about to enter into the covenant of the Lord means that they were renewing the covenant commitment their fathers had made nearly 40 years earlier, assuming its privileges and its responsibilities. Now, verse 13 says, it basically says that once Israel had pledged its covenant fidelity, the Lord would reciprocate by establishing Israel as his people and himself as their God, as promised to their forefathers. Now, the verb here that is translated establish is a technical term referring to the ratification of an already existing agreement. So as we said before several times, it's a renewal. God had not just introduced a new covenant arrangement with this generation, but it also had confirmed one made with their patriarchs and their fathers at Sinai. In 14 and 15, the covenant was being reaffirmed by the Lord, not only with the Israelites of that generation, but, quote, with those who are standing here. In other words, he's talking to non-Israelites here as well. Those who also embraced the God of Israel, but they weren't really Israelites. So, those who were alien, but they wanted to be a part of this. Also, beyond that, it was being made, and we'll quote here, with those who are not here today. And that's referring to the unborn generations ahead who would also need to affirm their commitment to God. And that ends us today. Tomorrow we'll dive into 30 and 31 of Deuteronomy. If something was missed today that you want to talk about, pop it in the comment section and we will talk about it in the comment section. And click that like button, that subscribe button, and of course click the little jingle bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video, which will be tomorrow for Deuteronomy 30 and 31 for another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. I hope to see you tomorrow.